Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Vance. If this is the very first time coming across my channel, thank you for stopping by. If you're a returning subscriber, thank you for coming back. So in this tutorial, I'll be teaching you how to make this beautiful baggy trouser with two side pockets, elastic waistband and a rope. So if you're interested in this tutorial, let's get right into it. So for this tutorial guys, I'll be making use of these 3 yards of Ankara print fabric. If you're in a small size, you can use 2.5, but if you're in a big size, you can use 3 yards. So what I'm going to do next is to take this to the floor because my table is not going to be enough to cut it, and then we are going to proceed from there. So I have gone ahead to fold my fabric into 2, just the way you see me doing. I folded it into 2. The next thing I'm going to do is to determine the width of the fabric, or the width that I'm going to use for the trouser. So the width I'm going to be using for this client is 18.5. That's because the hip divided by 4 plus 3 inches or 3.5, then plus your crotch. Then guys, when I'm done with that, I'll go ahead and rule out my starting line. Then because this trouser is going to have a waistband, I'm going to minus 1.5 inch from the length of the trouser. That means if your trouser is 41, you minus 1.5 inch from it. So I'll go ahead and take my client's hip line and then her crotch line. So her crotch is 12, so I'm going to add 1.5 inch to it, making it 13.5. After which I'll go ahead and take the length of my client's trouser plus 2 inches. So her trouser length is 41, added 2 inches, making it 43. So I'll go ahead now and repeat the same thing I did for the other part, the hip line, the crotch line, the full length. I'll also do the same thing for this other part, the hip, crotch and the full length. And then I'll go ahead and use my ruler to connect all the points together. I'm sorry at this point that the chalk is not really visible. So guys, I'm done connecting the points. Next thing I'm going to do on my crotch line, I'm going to go ahead and divide my client's hip by 4, which is 12. I'll mark it there and then I'll add 3.5 inches as the allowance. You can add more if you want, but 3.5 inches is fine. I'll go to the waistline and I'm going to impute the same thing, her hip measurement plus the 3.5 inches allowance. I'll do the same thing at the hip line too, her hip measurement divided by 4 plus 3.5 inches. Then I'll go ahead and use my ruler to connect the points together. So I'll go back to the crotch line to get my crotch extension. So to get your crotch extension, you divide your client's hip or your hip by 4. Whatever you have, you mark it there. So I'll go ahead and connect from my hip line down to the crotch extension. So the next thing I'm going to do is to take my tape and then I'm going to get whatever I have there, just the way you see me doing, and I'll go ahead and mark it down to the full length of the trouser. When I'm done, I'll use my ruler to connect the points together, just as shown. When I'm done guys, I'll go ahead and cut out. So guys, I'll go ahead and fold for the back part of our trouser. When I'm done folding, I'm going to go ahead and place the front block on the folded fabric, and then I'm going to go ahead and arrange it properly. So after I was done arranging, the next thing I went ahead to do was to come up from my waistline by 1.5 inch. I marked it there. So after I was done marking, I connected it down to the other end of my waistline, just like this. And then for the allowance, I used 2 inches for the allowance at this end. So I went ahead to mark my 2 inches straight down. So I kept on marking the 2 inches till I got to this crotch extension part. The crotch extension I used for the front is 3 inches. So you repeat the same thing for the back. So I went ahead to reconnect it again so that it will have that curvy shape. Then from there again, I went ahead to add another 2 inches. So I connected it from the crotch extension to the 2 inches I added, and then I'll go ahead from that point to impute my 2 inches. Note, the only allowance that you have to add in this type of trouser is only at this end. Do not add any other allowances. So I went ahead to cut out my pattern. So watch how I'm cutting it. So after I was done, I had to readjust my trouser. I'm sorry that part is not showing, but all I did was to cut out my pattern following the front side of the trouser to cutting out the back side. So when I was done, guys, I went ahead to mark out the wrong sides. So from that point, to get my pockets, I came down from the waistline by 0.75. So I marked it there and I went ahead to give it a notch. When I was done with this, the next thing I did was to cut my pocket. So I set this aside, and then I took the remaining piece. I folded it into 2 first. Then when I folded it into 2 like this, I had to fold it again into 4. So making it 4 pieces for the sides of the pocket. The length of the pocket I use, that's the longer part of the pocket, I use 10.5, while the shorter part of the pocket I use 8 inches. So I went ahead to mark it, and then I used my scissors to cut it out, just the way you see me doing. So when I was done cutting, guys, to get that shape, there's this, I folded it into 2 like this, and then I went ahead to give it that C-cut shape round the tip of the pocket like this, and then I went ahead to open it up because that part wasn't opened. So this is our pocket. I'll set it aside. So going to the sewing part, I'll go ahead and sew the crotch by 1/2 inch, and then I also sew the back by 1/2 inch. Only the crotch first, sew it by 1/2 inch. So when I was done, guys, this was how it looked when I was done sewing. And then to attach my pocket, guys, I went ahead to place my pocket on the notch point, and then I went ahead to pin it down. I'll do the same thing for this other side of the pocket. I placed my pocket on the notch part like this, so you should do the same thing. And then I went ahead to pin. When I was done pinning, I'll go ahead and sew it down by 1/2 inch. I'll do the same thing for this other part and for the other side of the trouser. So this was me taking you through the process of how I sew the pocket. Just a stitch, a straight stitch. There's nothing difficult here. So this was it when I was done sewing the pocket, and I've also gone ahead to iron it out. So I have sewn the 2 pockets, the front and the back, together. I went ahead to place my trouser right side facing right side, and I want to go ahead now to shape the sides together. So I used my pin to pin it down, that's to keep it in place. And then I also pin down my pocket side. I make sure that all the parts are equal before I pin down. So I'm just going to go ahead and just pin this all through to the length of the trouser. When pinning, I'll go ahead and sew it down. So this was when I was done sewing. As you can see, I've gone ahead to sew down all the parts. So the next thing I'm going to do, guys, is to go ahead and sew the crotch part. That's the middle part of the trouser. Sorry, I don't know what to call it, but the middle part. So I went ahead to sew it down by 1 inch straight to the crotch, and then just watch what I'm doing, guys. I've gone ahead to sew it down. So the next thing I'm going to do is to hem the trouser length.
So this was me when I was folding. So I wanted everything to be equal. I folded the hem of the trouser like this, and I went ahead to measure it. The length that I want to use for the hem of this trouser is 1.6 inches. So I went ahead to measure my 1.6 inches like this, and then I'm going to also go ahead and do the same thing for the other part. This is the hem of the trouser. Go ahead to measure yours so that it will be equal. If you notice on people's trouser, when you don't do this measurement, it's not going to be equal. If you watch some people's trouser, it's usually not equal down there. So you have to make sure that you measure, take accurate measurements. So when I was done, guys, I still went ahead to do the same thing. I took the length and it was corresponding, and then I went ahead to iron it. So this was it when I was ironing, guys, just to make sure that everything is sitting perfectly. So when I was done ironing, guys, I really ironed this thoroughly. So I flipped it over again and ironed. So what I did was to go back to check if it was still at my 1.75, and I folded it like this. So this part I folded is the part that I'm going to sew down to the piece, like hiding the rough edge. So I went ahead to iron it so it's going to stay put. It's not going to give me issue while sewing. So I think you should do the same thing for yours too, just to ensure a good finishing. So guys, when I was done with this part, I just went ahead, took it to my sewing machine, and then I sewed it down. I did the same thing for the other parts of the trouser. I repeated the same method, and then I'll show you how it looks like when I'm done. So this was when I was done sewing it, guys. Are you seeing everything is looking good? Like everything is straight, it's aligning. So when I was done with this, I went ahead to measure the waist part of our trouser. That's for my client. I went ahead, I took my tape and then measured round the waist to know how many inches I'm going to cut out for the waistband. So this was me measuring. So at the end of the measurement, my client's waist was 61.5. So I went ahead to cut the band. I used 2.5 inches for the band. That is, when you open it up, it will become 5 inches width. So I kept on marking it so I could get a perfect 2.5 inches. So when I was done marking, I went ahead to connect my points together, and after which I had to cut it out. So at this point, guys, I had to cut 2 of these pieces because the length will not be enough for the waist of my client. So I went ahead at this point now to highlight my 1/2 inch. This is where I'm going to close. I'm going to close this part entirely. So from this close end now, I'm going to go ahead and take the length of my client's waist. So for the length of my client's waist, I'm going to divide her waist, which is 61.5 by 2, and it gave me 30.7. I marked it there, and then I added 1 inch allowance. This 1 inch allowance is where my elastic and my rope is going to pass through. So when I marked it, I connected it like this straight to the end, and then I'll go ahead and cut out. So when I'm done cutting out, guys, I will leave this part, and then I'll go ahead and sew this part down by the 1/2 inch. When I'm done, I'll show you how it looks. So this was when I was done sewing it by 1/2 inch. The next thing I'm going to do now is to go back to this end. So because our elastic is going to pass through this part, what I'm going to do is I'll come up by 1 inch. This 1 inch I came up by is the part I'm going to sew, and I'm going to come up again by another 1 inch. This 1 inch I'm coming up by is the part I'm not going to sew. That's the part that the elastic will pass through, while the other end I will sew. So let me recap. I'm going to sew this part, leave this part, and sew this part. That's basically it. So I'll go to my sewing machine and sew it down. So this was it when I was sewing it down. I sewed down the longer part, and then I had to raise up my foot to skip that 1 inch that I marked, and then I took it down again, and then I now sew down the other 1 inch straight to the length of our band. I hope you understand. So when I was done, guys, I'll go ahead and open up the seam. So when I open up the seam, that's the part I'm going to sew down. So this is it. When I opened up the seam, I'll just go and sew it down at that tip, so that the elastic will not be obstructed while you're passing it through. So I've gone ahead to sew it down. Now you see my hand going through the hole. That's where the elastic will pass. So I went ahead to remeasure if my band was still 5 inches. When I noticed it was, I had to go ahead and fold my band like this, and then I went ahead to iron it so that it's going to look straight, or it's going to be straight rather. So I went ahead to iron round the band. I also opened the other end seam line, and then I folded again, and I ironed till I got satisfied. So when I was done with this, guys, I went ahead to trim out the excesses from the band. So when I was done trimming, I'll go ahead and introduce my trouser. So this is where the elastic is going to pass through. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce my trouser right now, and then the center front matching the center front of the band. That's the center front of the band is where the elastic is going to pass. So I'll match it right side facing right side, and I'll go ahead and use my pin to pin it down, just the way you see me doing. So when I'm done pinning, guys, are you seeing it's matching? These two center fronts are matching together, and then the elastic where I put the scissors is where the elastic is going to sit. So I'll go ahead and sew it down by 1/2 inch. So when I was done sewing, guys, this is how it looks. Are you seeing? It's so clean. So this is the elastic I'm going to use. I'm going to be using 1 inch as the width, while the longer part I decided to use 31 inches. So for the length of the band, I used 31 inches for the length, while for the width of this band is 1 inch. So I had to cut it out, and then I got my safety pin, and then I passed the pin through the elastic, and from the elastic through the space that I gave it on the trouser band. So this was me when I was just passing the elastic round the band, just the way you see me doing. You have to be careful at this point. The safety pin was removing. It was quite stressful while I was doing this, so you have to be careful while doing yours too. So this was it when I was done. Are you seeing? I was done with the whole passing process. So I had to just go ahead and rearrange the elastic so that it's going to sit inside the waistband well. So after I was done with this, guys, I'll go ahead and remove my safety pin, and then I'll go ahead and sew the elastic band by 1/2 inch. So I'll go ahead and sew it down like this in my sewing machine, and I'll show you how it looks. So this was when I was done sewing it, guys. Are you seeing? The trouser is already giving. So I'll go ahead now at the tip of the band. I'll sew it down by 1/2 inch round. So this is what I'm going to do. So as you're sewing, guys, make sure you're stretching. That's what is going to give it that gather feel around the elastic area. Just make sure you're stretching it as much as you can. So just be stretching like that. After you're done sewing this part, you will now go ahead and sew the middle part. You give space for the middle, because that is where your elastic is going to pass through. So I went ahead at this end to give space. Are you seeing? If you look closely, you see that I gave a little space, about 1 inch or 0.75 spacing, where your rope is going to pass through. So I kept on sewing and then dragging my elastic, so it's going to give it that clustered look. So when I'm done, guys, I'll go ahead and then top stitch the down part of the trouser. So watch what I'm doing next. So I'm top stitching here. Are you seeing? I'll go ahead and just sew it round. So watch what I'm doing. I'm top stitching at the waistline. That waistline, that's where I'm top stitching. So I kept on sewing it round the waist till I was done.
So guys, if you found value in my tutorial, please do well to subscribe, hit on the notification bell to get notified whenever I upload a new video. So basically this was when I was done. So the next thing I was going to do was to just pass my rope through the elastic band. This was it when I was done, guys. Are you seeing? Thank you guys.